My daughter gave all 5 of her bridesmaids elegant champagne-colored gowns. She handed me a dusty rose mother of the bride dress 3 sizes too small, 2 days before the wedding, and smiled when she said the store was out of my size. I'm 53 years old. I've lived long enough to know when someone is lying to my face with a smile on it. But let me back up, because you can't understand what happened at that wedding without knowing what the 20 years before it looked like. My daughter's name is Iris. She's 31 now, and from the outside, she's everything people think a successful woman should be. She married a man named Patrick last spring. A corporate attorney, sharp dresser, the kind of man who opens car doors in front of an audience. From the outside, their wedding looked like a magazine spread. Inside, it was the clearest picture I'd ever seen of exactly who my daughter had decided to become. I raised Iris mostly alone. Her father, my ex-husband Theodore, left when she was 9. He wasn't violent or dramatic about it. He just slowly removed himself from our lives the way you'd let air out of a tire, quietly, until one day there was nothing left to drive on. He remarried within 2 years. His new wife had money. Real money. The kind that meant private school and ski trips to Vail, and a college fund that I could never have matched on a teacher's salary. Iris was 12 when she started spending more weekends at Theodore's. 14 when she stopped correcting people who assumed his wife was her mother. 16 when she told me, during an argument about curfew, that her real home was with her dad. I told myself it was teenage cruelty. I told myself she'd grow out of it. She didn't grow out of it. She just got more polished about it. By the time she was in her mid-20s, Iris had developed a particular skill for making me feel like a guest in her life. Present enough to be useful. Invisible enough not to embarrass her. She'd call me when she needed something. To watch her apartment while she traveled, to help her move, to proofread her graduate school application. She'd go weeks without returning my text between those moments. At family gatherings on Theodore's side, I wasn't mentioned. I found that out through a cousin of mine who ran into someone from that world at a conference. None of this broke me. You raise a child alone for 9 years on $48,000 a year? You get used to absorbing things. But the dress, that broke something's loose in me. And what happened 3 weeks after the wedding? That finished the job entirely. When Iris got engaged to Patrick, she called me on a Tuesday evening. I remember because I was grading papers at the kitchen table, red pen in hand, and I set it down when I saw her name on my phone because she almost never called. She texted sparsely. She told me she was engaged. She told me the wedding would be the following May. She told me she was excited. I asked if I could help with anything. There was a pause, just a half second, but I've known that pause my whole life. It's the sound of someone deciding what to give you. We'll figure out the mother of the bride stuff when we get closer, she said. I didn't push. I learned a long time ago that pushing Iris was like pushing a revolving door. All that effort and you ended up right back where you started. Over the following months, I received updates the way you receive newsletters. Scheduled, impersonal, mostly informational. The venue was a vineyard in Napa. The guest count was 180. The bridesmaid dresses were champagne. Could I RSVP by February? Yes. Would I be bringing a guest? No, I'd be coming alone. In March, about 8 weeks before the wedding, Iris texted me that she'd taken care of my dress, and I'd receive shipping information soon. I thanked her. I assumed she'd coordinated with the boutique they were using for the bridal party. The package arrived on a Thursday. I remember standing in my living room, cutting the tape on the box, thinking it might be nice. Thinking that maybe this was Iris's way of doing something thoughtful without having to say anything emotional about it. She's not good with emotional things. I'd told myself that was something she'd get from Theodore, not from me. I pulled the dress out of the tissue paper. It was dusty rose. Not the soft romantic kind. The kind that looks like someone tried to make salmon and gave up halfway. The kind of color that washes out anyone with a warm complexion, which I have. The style was what I can only describe as mother of the groom in 1987. High neck, drop waist, a bow at the back that I genuinely thought was a mistake until I looked more closely. And the size. I wear a 14. I have worn a 14 for 15 years. The dress was a 10. I held it against myself in front of the mirror in my bedroom. It wouldn't zip past my hips if I tried for a week. I texted Iris immediately. Hey, the dress arrived. I think there might be a mix-up. It's a size 10 and I'm a 14. Is there another one coming? She read it. I could see the read receipt. She didn't respond for 6 hours. When she finally did, she said, "That was the only one available in that color. The boutique was out of your size. I thought it might work if you had it altered." I sat with that text for a long time. The wedding was in 8 weeks. A dress that's 4 sizes too small cannot be altered to fit. Any seamstress will tell you that. You can take in, you can let out a little, but you cannot create fabric that doesn't exist. This wasn't a minor fix. This was a dress that I physically could not wear. I wrote back, "Iris, a size 10 can't be altered to fit a 14. That's not how alterations work. Is there another option?" This time she responded in 20 minutes, "I'll look into it." 3 weeks passed. I sent 2 more messages, gentle ones, asking for an update. She replied to the second one, "The boutique is looking into it. Try not to stress, Mom. Try not to stress." The wedding was 5 weeks away and I had a dress in my closet that couldn't button past my knees. I want to be honest with you about something. During those weeks, I started to wonder if this was intentional. I hated myself for thinking it. You're not supposed to think that about your own child. You're supposed to believe the best, extend grace, assume incompetence before malice. I'd been doing that for 20 years, but I'd also been a mother for 31 years. And I knew my daughter, and I knew what she looked like when she was engineering an exit for someone. She wanted me to show up looking like a joke. Or better yet, she wanted me to decide it wasn't worth it and not come at all. I almost gave her that. I called my oldest friend, a woman named June. Not the June on any list, just my June, who has known me since we were 22 and sharing a studio apartment in Chicago. And I told her everything while sitting in my car in a parking lot because I didn't want my neighbors to hear me crying through the walls. June said, "Do not let her run you out of your own daughter's wedding." I said, "It's not really my daughter's wedding. It's Theodore's daughter's wedding. I'm just the woman who held her when she had ear infections and sat with her in the ER at 2 in the morning when she broke her arm in 5th grade and drove her to every single volleyball practice for 4 years." June was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That's exactly why you have to go." So I went shopping. I want to say something about this part. It felt defiant in a way I hadn't felt in years. I went to 3 department stores and a boutique downtown that a colleague recommended. I wasn't looking for revenge. I wasn't trying to make a statement. I was looking for a dress that fit my body and made me feel like a person who deserved to be in the room. I found one at the 4th place. It was a deep mauve, which, if you don't know, is close enough to dusty rose that it reads as family, but distinct enough that it's clearly its own choice. Floor length, fitted through the waist, simple, elegant. I found earrings that picked up the color perfectly. I had my hair done that Saturday morning by someone who's been doing it for 12 years and knows how to make me look like myself, not like a stranger. I drove to Napa alone. The rehearsal dinner was the night before, and I attended it. And I sat at the table that had been designated for me. Not the head table, not anywhere near the head table, and I smiled at people I didn't know. And answered questions about being a teacher with genuine warmth, because I actually love being a teacher and no one can take that from me. Iris, at the rehearsal dinner, barely looked at me. Patrick looked at me once, with an expression I couldn't quite read. Something between recognition and discomfort, like he was seeing something he'd been told not to look at directly. I slept well that night. That surprised me. The morning of the wedding, I got myself ready in my hotel room. I put on the mauve dress and the earrings and I looked at myself in the mirror and I said out loud, to nobody, "You are Iris's mother. You were her mother before any of this and you will be her mother after all of this. Show up like it." Then I went. The ceremony was at 4. The vineyard was genuinely beautiful. Rolling hills, golden afternoon light, the kind of setting that costs more than I make in a year. Iris's bridesmaids lined up in their champagne gowns. She walked out on Theodore's arm, which I had been told about in advance and had made my peace with, mostly. I was seated in the front row on the bride's side. Here is the thing about front rows. Everyone can see them. And when people began to notice that the mother of the bride was not wearing what appeared to have been planned for her. Not the dusty rose disaster that arrived in a box, but something else. Something that actually looked intentional and lovely. People noticed. I saw guests leaning to each other. I saw an aunt of Patrick's tilt her head in my direction and say something to the woman beside her. I saw Theodore's wife, whose name is Claire, glance at me from across the aisle with an expression I'd never seen on her face before. Something like surprise. Something like reassessment. I didn't perform anything. I didn't play to the audience. I just sat there, upright, watching my daughter get married, feeling every complicated thing a mother feels, watching her child begin a life without her. And I think that's what people saw. Not triumph. Just dignity. Just a woman who had been handed something humiliating and had quietly, without drama, refused it. After the ceremony, during cocktail hour, Patrick's mother found me by the charcuterie table. Her name is Donna, and she is a retired school principal from Connecticut, which I mention because that tells you everything you need to know about how she approaches a situation. She put her hand on my arm and said, in a low voice, "I just want you to know. You look beautiful. And I heard about the dress situation. I'm very sorry." I said, "Thank you, it worked out." She looked at me for a moment longer than the exchange called for. Then she said, "Patrick thinks very highly of you," and moved on. I didn't know what to do with that, so I tried a piece of prosciutto and looked out at the hills. The reception was fine. I ate dinner at my designated table. I gave a toast that I had written and rewritten 4 times. And I said only true things. That I hoped Iris found the kind of love that steadied her. The kind that was still there in the ordinary Tuesday evenings, not just the celebrations. People applauded. Iris thanked me briefly from her seat. Theodore watched me from across the room with an expression I hadn't seen from him in 30 years, something almost like regret. I danced once, with Patrick's uncle, who was a retired firefighter from Ohio and an excellent dancer. I drove back to my hotel before 10. I was asleep by 11. And then 3 weeks later, the photographer reached out to me directly. His name was Marcus. And yes, I know that name is in the original video, but this Marcus was real. This Marcus was a 40-something man from the Bay Area who clearly took his work seriously, because he sent me an email with a subject line that said, "A few photos I thought you should have." I almost didn't open it. I almost thought it was a mailing list. But I opened it on a Sunday morning with my coffee. And I sat there for a very long time. The photographer had captured something I didn't know was being captured. There were 37 photos. They began in the preparation area. And I wasn't in the prep photos, because I hadn't been included in that part of the day. They began at the ceremony, and the first one I saw was this. Me, in the front row, turned slightly toward the aisle as Iris walked in. And on my face was an expression I don't think I could have described to you before I saw it. It wasn't the stiff smile I'd practiced. It was something raw and real. Love, yes, but also grief, and also something steely underneath both of those things. A woman who was present in spite of everything. And then there were photos from later in the evening. Photos that I hadn't known existed. Photos that told a story I couldn't have staged. There was one of Iris during cocktail hour, being asked by one of her bridesmaids about the mother of the bride dress. I could tell from the body language. Iris's shoulders had gone up, her chin down. That defensive posture I've known since she was 14. The bridesmaid, a woman named Kayla who I'd met once, was clearly pressing the point. Whatever she was asking, Iris did not look comfortable answering it. There was one of Patrick's mother, Donna, speaking to Patrick at the edge of the reception tent. Patrick's expression in that photo. I can't describe it, except to say that it was the face of a man who was learning something he hadn't known before. And there was one of me that I keep coming back to, that I keep returning to when I feel like that particular kind of middle-of-the-night loneliness that doesn't have a name. It was taken during the toast. I was standing, holding my glass, and the frame caught both me and Iris in the same shot. Iris was looking down at her plate. I was looking at her like she was still 9 years old and scared. The photographer wrote in his email, "I've been doing this for 15 years, and every wedding tells a story. Some of those stories I keep to myself. But a few of the attached photos, I thought you'd want them. You can do with them what you'd like. They're yours." He didn't explain further. He didn't have to. I don't know exactly what happened in the weeks after the wedding inside Iris and Patrick's house. I know some things, because Patrick called me about a month later. Not Iris. Patrick. He called on a weekday afternoon, and he was careful and deliberate the way lawyers are when they're saying something that matters. He told me that he'd had some conversations with Iris about the wedding. He told me that he'd seen the photos from Marcus. He told me that he and Iris were talking about a lot of things. including things that had happened long before he was part of the picture. He said, "I just want you to know that I see what kind of person you are. And I'm going to make sure Iris sees it too. That's a promise I'm making to you, not as her husband, but as someone who thinks you deserved better than what you got." I didn't say anything for a long moment. Then I said, "Thank you, Patrick." And he said, "I hope we can have dinner sometime, the three of us, when things have settled." I said I'd like that. He said, "She loves you, you know. She just doesn't know how to show it without feeling like she's betraying something she decided a long time ago." I'm working on that. I think about that sentence a lot. She decided a long time ago. Because that's true, and I think on some level I always knew it. Iris made a decision somewhere around age 14, that her life would look a certain way and involve certain people. And that I was adjacent to that life but not central to it. And she'd been maintaining that decision ever since with the kind of quiet discipline it takes to keep a wound from healing. Iris has not called me, but she texted me last week. It was a photo, no message, just a photo, of the two of us from the reception. It was one of Marcus's photos. We were standing side by side and I had my hand on her shoulder and she had leaned into it slightly, just slightly, in a way I don't think she was conscious of doing. I looked at that photo for a long time. Then I texted back, "I love you." She didn't reply, but the three dots appeared, and then disappeared, and then appeared again, and then disappeared for the last time. I know she read it. I know she's trying to figure out what to do with all of it. At 31, working out that you've been wrong about something for 15 years is some of the hardest work a person can do. I've given her worse news than that, and watched her figure it out eventually. She has my stubbornness. That's the part she got from me. My friend June called me last weekend and asked how I was doing with everything. I told her about Patrick's call, about the photo, about the three dots. June said, "So what happens now?" I thought about it for a second. I said, "Now I wait, and I make myself available without making myself small. And I keep teaching my kids at school who actually need me every day. And I buy myself flowers on Fridays because I've decided I'm worth at least that much." June laughed. Then she said, "You should write all this down." So I did. I wore a mauve dress to my daughter's wedding, because the dress she chose for me didn't fit, and I refused to disappear. I stood in the front row and I let people see my face, and I gave a toast about love and I meant every word of it. And the photographer saw what actually happened that day. Not the version that was supposed to happen. Not the version where I was a footnote or a cautionary tale, or someone who showed up looking like a sad joke at the back of someone else's story. He saw a mother at her daughter's wedding. That's all. That's everything. I have the photos framed now, just two of them. The one from the ceremony, my face unguarded and real, and the one from the toast, both of us in the same frame, her looking down, me looking at her like she's still mine. Because she is. She always will be. No dress chosen or unchosen, too small or otherwise, changes that.